And he was on his back and his eyes were open. And I still couldn't tell what happened. Like, he had a little bit of blood in the corner of his mouth. I couldn't tell if he'd been hit in the face with a tool or what. There was a lot of things going on. And you know, behind me, you could hear like the mayhem that was going on at the structure. And it was, you know, we were right there. You know, he looked like he tried to take a breath and looked like, when I say this, a huge rush of blood. Like, remember, I'm a surgeon, fellas. Like, my huge rush of blood and your huge rush of blood are probably different amounts. And I was like, oh shit, like something has a fucking hole in it that's not supposed to. And I pulled his collar protector down and you could see a big wound in his neck. I still don't know to this day who called me, but she screamed into the phone like multiple officers down, Market and Lamar, and slammed the phone down. And you know, as it turned out, like, obviously bad location, bad intersection, bad information, like, you know, all the above. But I was already heading south, so I was able to turn on all the emergency equipment and come racing into downtown. We get into the stairwell, and you know, at this point, like, we'd run 4 blocks, and you know, it's really disorienting down there. I mean, I've heard many people describe the fog of war, and I've never been on the battlefield, but I can tell you, like, with the gunfire ricocheting off of buildings and reports of people, you know, in other locations, like, I didn't know whether we were under attack by 1 person or 20 still at this point in the night.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal.
And we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide.
Sushruta is considered the founding father of surgery. He believed the definition of a surgeon is a person who possesses courage and presence of mind, a hand free of perspiration, tremorless grip of sharp instruments, and who carries his operations to the success and advantage of his patients who have entrusted their lives to the surgeon. The surgeon should respect this absolute surrender and treat their patients as if they were his own child. Welcome back, ATO fans. Today we are sitting with a true healer and lifesaver. He was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Kensington, Maryland. He moved to Dallas, Texas in 2001 to train in surgery at Parkland Memorial Hospital, and he has remained in Dallas since. This guest's incredible resume is a mile long, as he has dedicated his life to helping others. He formerly served as the chief of trauma center at Parkland Memorial Hospital. He was also assistant professor and trauma surgeon in the Division of Burns and critical care at University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, and he continues to be a practicing trauma surgeon. Today, he is a senior medical officer at the Department of Homeland Security. In this role, he is responsible for operational medicine across DHS, in addition to countering threats to the United States and worldwide. He has the rank of lieutenant, and he is the chief medical officer for the Dallas Police Department. Doctor Alex Eastman, welcome to the ATO stage. Seriously, Doc, thank you for taking the time out of your busy-ass schedule and sitting down with us.
Joe, you bet. It's really great to be here. Long overdue, and the only thing I am a little bitter about is Kent knows that my the music Pour Some Sugar on Me always comes on when I take the stage. So the fact that we went without it, I'm not sure what to say first thing off the bat.
Hey, I can make that happen. Don't worry.
I'm sure
I think Kennedy can pipe that in.
But seriously, great to be here with you guys. This is just a fantastic product, and I've been a listener for a long time and honored to be a guest with you guys.
Well, hey, the honor's ours, man. You've done. We're going to get into your body of work, and it's impressive, and you continue. There's so many different iterations of Dr. Eastman, and every time a new one comes out, it's bigger. And you just expand, you keep expanding, and your career is just amazing, and your dedication to service it's just incredible.
Well, thanks, John. I'm trying to take my waistline in the opposite direction, so I don't want that to keep expanding. But it's a work in progress.
Hey, all of us are. We none of us getting younger sitting there. Speaking of, before we get into your episode, Doc, I want to introduce a guest co-host. It's Sergeant Kent Wolverton of the Narcotics Unit.
That's what it says on my underwear.
Yeah, that's what. Right next to that, you drew it in with your Sharpie underneath
Mom
the
still
Hanes.
does that for me.
Yeah, those tidy whities. Hey, tell the listener a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this, and and I definitely wanted you here for Doc's episode because y'all have worked together for quite a while.
Yeah, we spent a couple years together and working with the SWAT team. About 6 years there. I did another 2 years over in K9, and then just recently I moved over to Narcotics to take care of their admin stuff for them. Started off in Southeast, where all good cops start.
God's country.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We'll just leave it at that. I've been listening to the podcast for a long time. I really enjoy it, and getting to take part in it is great. You know, we've been going through the wellness training, looking at things here and there, and I think it's a great way to highlight the things that we're trying to accomplish in the department and even outside of the department, just as individuals.
Yeah, thank you, and you and I have talked before. I really had no idea that you even had an interest in wanting to get behind a mic. I am glad that you're wanting to help me out on this because I could use all the help I can get, honestly, because I'm new to this. I'm not a professional. Anybody that listens can hear that really quickly. And me being around all these true crime podcast nerds at that festival this past weekend, everybody really those guys are serious. This is how they make their money.
We can update your LinkedIn bio and make you professional, no problem.
Yeah,
it's taken care of.
I'm gonna get my Wikipedia page and update that. So, all right, thanks, Ken. Seriously, thank you for being here.
Yes,
Doc. You ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
All right.
You bet.
We're going to start off easy. I just want to tell the listener, we're going to start, we have a flow, right? We have a beginning and an end, a quasi-end, because it's not over yet for Dr. Eastman. But tell the listeners where you were born and where'd you grow up.
Yeah, you bet. I was born in Washington, D.C., actually, the son of two attorney parents who moved to Washington after law school. And great family life, mom, dad. I have a younger brother that's 7 years younger than I am, who I'm as close to as anyone in the world, who's just a fantastic human being, way better person than I am. But grew up outside of D.C., although big Texas roots. My father's from San Antonio, mom's from Southern California originally. And look, it was a great place to grow up. I grew up with parents who believed in serving others and doing the right thing and giving your, what you've been given back to other people. Interestingly, they were probably as far as humanly possible from being the police. So this was always a little bit of a surprise to them. Well, maybe not a surprise as you hear sort of some of the ways I came up, but they were always a little startled by this career twist, and it really was a twist. It was never something I thought, I would end up doing. But yeah, so grew up in D.C. in the suburbs there, and but have called Dallas home for more than 20 years now.
Speaking of growing up in D.C., what is in your opinion, the greatest Washington Redskin running back ever?
Oh, I mean, there is only one that makes that list for a number of reasons. But if you come into my house right here in Dallas, I I have, not still, a signed John Riggins jersey hanging.
Crank up that diesel
on the wall. Crank up that diesel. And I mean, look, a guy who tells it like it is at all times, even to his detriment, I think. But probably, one of the best Washington football players ever to don the jersey. And I will tell you, Joe, it has not been easy to live here amongst you people for 20 years and still try to stay a
What do you
Washington.
mean, you people?
And still try to stay a Washington fan. So
well, at least we haven't won a Super Bowl since you've lived here.
True, true. Yeah, listen, I'm not
we're
sure
all
that'd be
suffering
tolerable.
together.
Yeah, I'm not sure that'd be tolerable.
I do find it kind of strange that as successful as you are in your professional career, you grew up a loser the entire time while the Cowboys were just running through the NFL.
Listen, I don't think that's appropriate, and it's motivational. I will tell you, I'll tell you, my brother and I once upon a time talked about buying the Redskins, and I said, look, I think the only way to right this ship is to buy the football team. My brother said, look, two things. One, we're short about $1.5 billion, and two, I don't think they're going to let two other dudes from Bethesda buy the team after what this one's done to it. So
yeah, no kidding.
Boy,
no, I'm a Cowboy fan, but I will say that I respect the history of some of these iconic teams going back to Theismann and just the longtime rivalry between the Cowboys and the Redskins. It's not much what it used to be, but it's still a tune-in game, even if they're bad or good that particular season.
Yeah, listen, Joe, I remember very clearly when I was little. My dad, obviously a San Antonio native, was a huge Cowboys fan living in Washington. And I remember, I don't remember the date, but, when I started my life as a Cowboys fan and realized I wasn't about to spend the next 15 years in school getting my ass kicked every Monday. Yeah. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this around, and became a Skins fan. And now whatever the Commanders now, but last year I bought my son some tickets took him to his first football game. And it was the, whatever they were, football team, Cowboys game in December. And about 2 weeks before the game, he says, Dad, I've got some bad news for you. He's 8 at the time. He just turned 8. He's like, I just want you to know I'm a Cowboys fan now. So, of course, we go to the game. I'm sandwiched between, a longtime Cowboys fan in Eddie Garcia, who is – horrible to watch the games with, because you're going to get a steady stream of shit talking from that guy, and then from my son, who reminded me all the way home that that Washington sucks for an hour in traffic on the way back from Arlington.
After the game.
I was like, this is great, great, thanks guys.
It's like a great experience.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I will not be back. I can tell you that, not anytime soon.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Commanders, their new name. What do you think of that name when you first heard it? It's named after the great Scott McDonald that started Dallas SWAT. Apparently,
there's a number of ways I could take that, but I'm going to go with the right up the middle answer to that and just say, look, I mean, I last heard a few years ago the owner say over his dead body, was he changing the name? And he seems like he's still ticking, and now we've had 3 names since then. So. Look, it's tough, man. I think when you talk about the world being a little too sensitive right now, I mean, I always tell this story. I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico for a work trip, and I was walking around the square in Santa Fe, and there was a Native American dude with a Redskin hat on. Mm-hmm. And I was like, damn, now that is not something you see every day. And he was selling jewelry, on the square, right. So I was like, hey, man, I'm going to buy a set of earrings or something from you, but we've got to talk about, your choice of headgear or whatever. And we had just an incredible conversation about how, most Native Americans don't, get upset about that. They recognize, it's not. But it's been, like many things in 2022 can be hijacked by a small, loud minority of people, and look what happens,
Yeah, it's just it's called the way it is, right? And right now in this point in time in our history, this is the way it is. And like you said, it usually but I believe that if some people could just sit and have a conversation, as opposed to being more concerned about getting likes and shares and hashtag and going viral on something.
Yeah.
I think that they can come to a better understanding of what you and I are, we don't know each other that well. I've known you for years in passing, but I love the Cowboys. You hate the Cowboys. I mean, we can talk about football and have disagreements, but I think if people just have conversations and stop and think about it and see somebody's point of view or perspective from their side, you can actually, you don't have to agree with them, but you can have an understanding and understand things more.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about July 7th later on, but after that, I was Jermaine Point. I was doing some sort of interview, and I was talking about how, as a surgeon, you really recognize how similar we are on the inside, and you walk up to the operating table when somebody's abdomen's already open and you look inside, like, you can't tell if they're black, white, Jewish, Muslim, like, they all look the same. Now, I probably could have worded it better because I said on the news that we're all pink on the inside, and a lot of people, like,
100% appropriate.
Took that, in a slightly different direction than I intended it. But I mean, the point's well taken. Like, we need to spend a lot more time remembering that, whether you're police or protester or, Jew or Muslim or whatever, like, we have, everybody wants the same things, and we're much more similar on the inside. I think the Redskins Commanders football team debacle is a great example of that. Like, we and I know we're going to talk about current jobs and roles and things like that, but we have real problems in this country that need to be addressed, and nipping at each other's flaws or small things that don't matter, not going to help any of us.
No, there's so much more serious shit going on. I
absolutely.
mean, anybody that listens to this podcast, you can hear about traumatic incidents and death and struggles, and you know what? With my own little personal issues, just like everybody at this table has got their own issues in life, the name of a sports team is way down my list.
Man, to say the least, brother.
I want to ask you something. So you're young, growing up in D.C., enjoying Riggins and the Hogs, right? Who and what inspired you to want to help others at that point? You talk about your parents being attorneys. What was the turning point for you to want to truly help others?
Yeah, Joe, it's a great question, because I don't. There's not, like, a lot of people say, look, I've got this formative figure in my life. I feel like I got so much of my character and my work ethic from my dad, and my dedication and devotion to the things that are important from my mom. But the way I came to medicine as a career, I did a lot of stuff before, and I had been a fireman and a rescuer and an emergency room paramedic in a big trauma center just outside of D.C. where I grew up, and I was doing all this stuff, and one day I and this was like my second year at UT, my sophomore year, I looked at myself and I was like, man, what are you doing? Like, all of these things sort of point to the fact that you need to go be a doctor, and stop. Like, you look at all the things you do, and all of them have the common theme of helping people in some sort of crisis, and the rest is history. I've had some wise mentors along the trail, and I hope we'll talk about some of them. But I remember, particularly as this was starting and taking off, and the way it started is again, something I'm sure we'll talk about, but, was a fascinating journey. And when I started, I called a very prominent surgeon in New Orleans named Norman McSwain, who's now deceased, but became a dear friend and mentor. And he said, look, Alex, like, your personality and your character and the things you're doing, like, a lot of doors are going to open to you, and you should walk through every single one of them. And now you may turn back around and come back out of a couple, but like that's the way to live your life. Like go through those doors and see what's on the other side. Sound sage advice, and I've repeated it to many a young surgical trainee or someone that wants to get into this side of, you know, this sort of niche of the business. Like go through those doors and see what you see on the other side. That's how we are. That's how we're here.
And how many those you talking about going through doors? And I talked about different iterations of Dr. Eastman, which there are many, and I'm sure there are many more doors you haven't gone through that probably closing in on doors that you've gone through in different options. But speaking of the doors, were there any doors you went through and you just, no, this isn't from me, that you can remember? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spent the better part of a year working on Capitol Hill for a congressman and for the House of Representatives Ways and Means Committee, you know, working on tax policy and money policy. And you know, it became pretty apparent to me that, you know, the fruits of your labor when you work at that level come for your children and your children's children. I mean, tax policy, dry and boring and whatever. But it became very clear to me that I wasn't destined for although it's ironic now as I come full circle, I wasn't destined to a career in the government, although here I am working for the government currently. But, you know, it made me realize that I wasn't patient enough for that and needed some more adrenaline and instant gratification to see the fruits of my labor. And now I've kind of come full circle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you gotta, you know, the important part about this is at every step finding out about yourself and what you're made of. And, you know, I think, you know, everybody, the sort of cliche term, Joe, is everybody says, you know your limitations. Like I would have been miserable sitting there, and I probably would also have weighed 400 pounds because they were like eating and drinking whiskey on the reg up there in those days. So,
like Mad Men days.
Yeah, like it was insane, like parties in the hallways and, you know, reps and lobbyists paying for dinners, and it just wasn't for me. And so, yeah, I mean, I said, nope, like glad to have had the experience, and actually an invaluable experience now as I deal with congressmen and senators and staff on a, you know, regular basis in my current role.
Well, you understand that world too, right? From early on. How old were you when you were doing that?
Man, I was in my 20s for sure. I was young, and it was, you know, pre-medical school, and my parents both, you know, growing up in D.C., if you stay there long enough, it's sort of impossible to avoid the bug of politics. But my dad was really involved in politics at you know, in sort of the middle phase of his career. And so, you know, like you're there, you're immersed in it, and then you get out and move down here, and you're like, holy shit, there's like a real world out here. You know, it's not always like this. But that, you know, a clear example of something that I knew wouldn't fulfill me in the way that I couldn't articulate it then very well, but I knew it wasn't for me.
Well, you understand it now because you've gone through so many doors and stepped back through the door and go, wait a minute. And you also, you're much more mature and seasoned than young 20-something-year-old Dr.
Yeah, I mean,
Eastman
I think there's probably a couple people that might argue with that assessment.
Well.
Like, they might take you to task over that. I mean, I'd like to think I am, but, you know, not in every way. But, yeah, it's a good point.
I get taken to task a lot in this campaign, so I'm used to it.
It seems like you're really comfortable becoming more uncomfortable, like learning something new and putting yourself into a different situation. You've done it multiple times throughout your career and made big moves, but your self-awareness of, you know, I either don't like what I'm doing or I want to try something different. A lot of people get real comfortable with what they're doing early on, and they don't want to move because they don't know what's coming next. But you seem to have that whole outlook and philosophy of what's next, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I've never really looked at it that way, but it is a profoundly uncomfortable experience to come into a brand new group or start something new. And really, I mean, let's be honest, and I hope we talk about this, have no earthly idea what it is you're getting yourself into. But, you know, I think about, you know, sort of falling back on my fundamental surgical training, and you learn some principles that you can always fall back on no matter what is going on around you. very not dissimilar from being police or being on the SWAT team. Like, you learn some things that are applicable no matter what you're doing. And so I think you take those principles and you apply them to whatever situation you're in. And of course, Ken, I'm just a, all around good dude. So that kind of helps.
No, I mean, it's written all over your face for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
I only have good people on this podcast.
Of course.
And we actually, Josh and Misty, we were trying to get you on early on. You're so damn busy.
Oh, it's been
my
crazy,
God.
man.
Yeah, and it's gonna get crazier.
It's okay. Like I was really glad. I was sorry to miss having Misty here. In my formative years, I think Misty was the. Obviously there is no one tougher in this business, having worked alongside her, and I think Misty was the first Dallas police officer I ever saw someone make bleed. So that's a special place in my heart. God bless the State Fair of Texas. It's different than probably not the advertisement the State Fair wants on the podcast, but yeah, no, Misty. I am I owe her a lot for teaching me a lot about this job and myself, and watching her excel in a world that oftentimes is not friendly to female operators, and no one that I know of ever looked at Misty Van Kuren as a female operator. Misty was just one of us.
Yeah, never twice, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, you might. Yeah, exactly.
She was an operator.
No, she is, and a dear friend, but I'll tell you, no one ever looked at her like that. And so, look, I hope, we were just talking about this as we were warming up, like, I didn't realize how good she was at the Irish goodbye after she ghosted us, and just one day she was here and the next day her emails were bouncing back, but good for her.
Yeah. We're gonna get, she's actually not done. She's not done with this podcast. We have the Jan Easterling's episode that's going to come on, and then I told Misty during her summer breaks, and the listener, they don't know yet. They're gonna find out soon what's going on with the great Misty Van Kuren. But during her summer breaks, I'm gonna wear her ass out on these recordings. She's got a lot of time on her hands.
Good for you.
So, you decided you wanted to go to med school. Talk about that process. Where'd you go, and just get into that?
Yeah, interestingly, when I was at Texas as an undergrad, I did pretty much every damn thing but study. And, I was in a very challenging degree program. And so I came out of undergrad with a couple of C's in biology, and I think I had one in organic chemistry too.
And the important stuff for doctors. Yeah, thanks.
Well, right. It just goes to show you that none of that really matters. And so getting into medical school for me was it's not like I had 35 offers. And I remember, so my dad ultimately passed away from early onset Alzheimer's disease, and he was reasonably impaired by the time I got into medical school, although was still living at home and stuff like that. And I remember, I was on the wait list at GW for about a month or so as they were sort of sorting out the class and trying to figure out. And, I had like some recommendation letters from some pretty heavy hitters. And it didn't seem to matter at the time. But I remember the day, they always say, like, when you're applying to professional school, you get like a little envelope. You might as well start the tears, because nobody sends you like a small envelope to welcome you to medical school. Like, you got to have a big envelope. So I remember the day the big envelope came, like, I grabbed it from the mail from my parents' house in Kensington, Maryland, where house where I grew up in, basically. And my dad and I walked into the kitchen and, opened the envelope and jumped up and down like, holy shit, I was in. And so, I ended up choosing to go to GW from a few options. And luckily, once I got to medical school, I learned how to be a real student, probably because I'd never really been pushed, even though I was Plan 2 at Texas and it was a challenge. But I'd never really been pushed, but I learned how to study. So when I came out of medical school into residency, like, I had I had a lot more options open to me then. But, GW was an incredible place to be a medical student. Living in D.C. was great because I was home and, my mom needed the help with my dad. But but it was a great place to be a student. It actually was going to be a terrible place to be a surgical resident because, like any job, you can't learn how to operate on people by watching somebody else do it. You've got to go to a place that knows how to train surgeons. And I know we're also going to spend some time talking about Parkland in the coming few minutes. But yeah, so that's how I ended up at GW. And, it was a great place to go to school, a great medical education and again, you want to talk about incredible mentors, two surgeons who I became very close friends with, who really pushed me, probably, and maybe, other than like a football coach and things like that, were the first people to really push you beyond your comfort zone. And I think, today they would be looked at as pariahs for some of their methods because they were hard on you and difficult. In fact, I remember Steve Evans, who's now, runs a large hospital system just outside of D.C., but as I started my fourth year of medical school, I was winning some award at the med school, and he put his arm around my mom, and he told her, "Hey, Hope, look, if you need to find Alex for the next 30 days, just call my office. My secretary will likely know where he is, but you won't because you're not going to see him for the next month. He's going to be, buried." And look, much of Steve Evans and then, the late Jules Cahan, who was a surgeon in one of our community sites who just an incredible guy. And he, was notorious for being brutal on the medical students and residents. But once you sort of made it through the crucible, he was a fan for life. And as my career developed, he would oftentimes reach out in some way that you didn't expect before he passed away. And I remember I wrote one of my, very first sort of academic papers that was published in a surgical journal. It was a big accomplishment, And I got a handwritten note from Dr. Cahan that said, unsolicited, like, "Dear Alex, I saw your article. Congratulations, a momentous, thing. I only wish you would have let me proofread it because you're missing a comma in the fourth sentence on the fourth page." And I was like, this fucking guy, but an advocate for those who made it through that crucible. And I hope that I, live my life in the same way now for the people that I'm training and bringing up behind me. So.
Well, when you're talking about hard-nosed, tough trainers, and everything has changed, right? Even in policing, the hard-ass trainers that I grew up with have changed from whenever Kent went through the police academy and he went through training. And then long before me, there was some hard, old, crusty trainers. But some of these officers, you're going into a field, and you're going into a field of a profession that you have to have ice in your veins, right? You have to remain calm, and we're going to get into your calmness later on. Kent's got a story, but it toughens you. If you can't take pressure from a controlled environment and somebody who deep down is a mentor and is there to help you, man, when you get into the real life, the same we get out on the streets, shit is 10 times worse, and it's real.
Oh, listen, now I would be remiss if I didn't at least put my own trainer up in that top 10. One Johnny Joe Tadlock, who I still can't believe that they allow Johnny to train rookies to this day. But, I had Johnny as my trainer well past his hard Southeast days.
Love Johnny.
Oh, just a great dude. And I hope we'll tell the story, at I'd like to say 6 feet, but we all know that's bullshit. At 5'11", and 235 pounds, my foot chase record of 1-0 currently still stands with the great Johnny Tadlock.
It's probably better than Johnny's record, honestly.
Oh no, 1-0. Listen, I'm batting 100%.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to beat that.
Yeah, no, you can't. In fact, I retired from the foot chase game shortly thereafter. But yeah, it's a great story, well worth it. Well, hell, let's just tell it.
Get on it.
So Yeah, so, when the police department, we started here, and we'll talk about this, but we started as civilians on the SWAT team, and both Jeff Metzger and I, one of the greatest partners and brothers and friends I could ask for, and I, ultimately went to the police academy at the suggestion of chief and leadership and things like that. It was a great suggestion, but so when we got out, and they decided, looked through the roster of training, I firmly believe they were like, well, we need to find these guys some trainers, but obviously we can't let them get killed. So Johnny was given pretty specific instructions, and it was many a night where I was like, "Hey, look, man, like we got to take somebody to jail tonight. Like I can't. Like the whole point in doing this is to know how to do this. Like, and I Johnny, like, come on, man, we can't. I don't want to diagram any more wrecks. Like, can we please go to jail tonight?" So we get this call. I'm driving, Johnny's riding. We get this call for a guy who has stolen dinner from the Dallas Chop House in downtown.
Nice restaurant.
Yeah, nice place, I never eaten in there, but the only time I've ever been in there. And the call sheet says that the manager is chasing the dude down the street. So I'm like, okay. So we drive down there. We're in downtown. And I see the guy, the suspect, and I wish, it's a podcast, you can't see me, but he clearly has something wrong with his legs because he's like gimping down the block, and I see the manager like at a very slow jog behind. So I look over to Johnny and I'm like, look, man,
he's mine.
This is my time.
Bro, ain't many of these that I know I've got in the tank. Okay, let's be honest. But this guy's mine. Like, so I'm going to pull up next to him. I'm going to put the car in park. I'm going to jump out. We're going to do I don't know what can you call, is it still a Chinese fire drill? Like, what's we're rotation, rapid. It's probably not okay to say anymore, but like, what I mean.
No, I know.
Yeah, like we got out, switched sides. And so I start jogging behind this dude and I'm like, hey man, look, like, just stop. Come on, man. He won't. He's running and gimping along. So, I'm trying to make the podcast match the paperwork. So, I used a bounce displacement technique to get him onto the ground right in front of like where the AT&T building is now. So there are tons of people out there. Yeah. It's like 6 p.m. Everybody's like, "Oh, you motherfucker. Like, leave the guy alone," blah, blah, blah. So, and the other thing is like, I can't help but laugh because Johnny's laughing and I'm laughing. Anyway, get the dude in custody. And it's like, it's like $125 worth of food. So he's got to go to jail.
Yeah.
Take him to jail. And he, bless his heart, like tough life living on the streets, but he smelled horrific. And I was like, Johnny, something's rotten on this dude. Like, this is what I do. Like, professionally, like, there's a problem. We haven't just found it. So we get to jail, and the jail lady, like, the nurse takes his shoes off, and both his feet are, like, necrotic and rotten. And then she, of course, like, as everybody listening to this podcast knows, like, she takes one look at that, and they're like, nah, that, put his shoes back on, to Parkland you go.
And you just started doing surgery right there.
No, but hear the rest. So this is, at this point, it's like midnight, So we like field release him and drop him at Parkland. I go home. I'm like, man, poor bastard. Like, So the very next morning, I'm on call. Like, I'm the surgeon on call for the hospital. And, obviously, like, I've showered and changed clothes. I'm out of uniform. I'm in, Parkland stuff. And I sit down. We have a morning meeting where the residents go over, like, what's been admitted overnight and what your first case is. And they say, okay, first case is this, 50-something-year-old guy was arrested by the police department last night after, stealing dinner at a restaurant. And, I was like, oh, shit. Like,
his legs fell off overnight.
Then they said, like, well, no, they're like, he's on the books for bilateral feet amputations. And I was like, well, shit, this is about to get complicated. So I went in to see the guy. And you could tell, like, he's looking at me like, now, just a minute. Like, this looks like the fat bastard that ran me down last night.
Are you wearing your white doctor coat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm dressed like a doctor, bro. He has no, like, identifying markings that indeed. So I could tell his wheels were turning. And I was like, all right, man, look, like, yeah, same guy. Like I've got kind of a unique side hustle, and the guy wouldn't let me do the operation.
One of those bad adult movies where
Yeah.
the police officer's also the doctor and the
Yeah,
plumber.
yeah,
You're that guy.
And the plumber.
Yeah, the guy was like, nope, he wouldn't sign the papers, so I had to get somebody else to come cut his feet off. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, he wouldn't do it. He was like, hell, he thought, I mean, look, like obviously had some mental issues, but he was like, hell no, like no way.
Yeah, not that bad.
Nope, I'm good. Like
Did you like slowly pull the
oh
white
man,
coat
so
open and
many
had your
things
uniform
I could have
underneath?
done,
Yeah.
dude. But yeah, like hey,
Still
but
had
yeah.
a gun belt on.
Yeah,
You know,
had the Class A hat on.
Yeah,
with
it's really weird. You know what? That there have been a couple of times where these roles have crossed, and
That's badass.
Yeah, it was fun. So poor guy. Like I hope he's okay somewhere. Probably
Well,
not.
he's
but
probably not running from cops.
not anymore.
But I want to get into Parkland Hospital.
Yeah.
You came here in 2001.
yeah.
All right, I want to give the listeners a little background on Parkland Hospital. It's a historic hospital here in Dallas, and there's actually a cool movie made called Parkland, and it's about the perspective of the Kennedy assassination when they brought President Kennedy in there, and they have it's a perspective from the hospital and the doctors and their roles that they played. It's a pretty good movie. The original hospital opened in 1894 in a little wooden building located near Oak Lawn. The name Parkland came from the land on which the hospital was built. 1913, the first brick building hospital was erected in Texas and replaced the old building. 1954, Parkland moved to Harry Hines Boulevard. In 2015, Parkland opened a new state-of-the-art facility. 5 individuals from the Kennedy assassination in 1963 either died or were pronounced dead at this hospital. President Kennedy himself, Lee Harvey Oswald, Jack Ruby, Abraham Zapruder, who filmed the assassination, and also the witness, Lady in Red, Jean Hill. She also died in Parkland. Parkland is so rich in history. And you think of Dallas, think of the big hospitals in Dallas, you think of Parkland.
No question.
So what was it like whenever you got there, and why did you pick? Did you pick to go to Parkland?
Yeah. So man, I'll tell you, when you the way you sort of end up training at a place is a match, right? So you put your list in 1 through whatever, and the programs put their list in 1 through whatever, and then a computer sort of puts you in the same place. I thought I was going to end up training in Boston initially, and I had ranked that program number 1 and Parkland number 2 until I came to visit, and I met some residents who were, current residents in the program and became dear friends and still friends to this day. And I realized, like, man, these guys could do anything, and they were not fazed by a single thing. And when I think about the kind of surgeon I'd like to hope that I am, it's a lot like being on a SWAT team. Like, you have to manage your own emotional response to whatever the stimulus is, and being a surgeon is no different. And so when I met these guys and saw them and saw how they carried themselves and saw how they responded, and other people responded to them in the hospital, I knew this is where I was coming, and I went and changed my list the very next day, and here I ended up. That was way before I knew much, much about the role that Parkland has played in this community for, more than 100 years, and still to some degree plays today. There are other hospitals now that, and certainly, we as the police department have had other hospitals take great care of some of our friends and brothers and sisters. But I will tell you that, in terms of a place to train and to learn, coming out of med school is kind of coming out of the police academy. Like, the nuts and bolts, but you don't really know how to be the police. Like, you come out of medical school, a lot about a lot of things, but you don't really know how to be a doctor. And learning how to be one at a place like Parkland back in the day was a very special thing to me. And even though I'm not there every day anymore, I still have a very warm place in my heart, and it's still, medical home for me, and in many ways for us. But yeah, it is a, you know, I often say that when you were in this town and something terrible was happening, if you could just get to the lands, like, you would be okay. And we've proven that over and over and over and over again. And in some, you know, in many ways, like, I hope that it never loses that focus, although, you know, it's sort of gone up and down over the years and had its issues like everywhere else. But, you know, I think the one thing that I hope Parkland never loses sight of is that its fundamental role in this community is to care for people that have no other place to turn. And you know, whether that means you're shot in the belly or you have some disease that you can't have cared for, like, that's where you go. And so I hope the citizens of this county and of the nation, like, understand, like, we got to have places like that. And it was a pretty sacred place to train. And, like, you know, I mean, talk about, like, you know, the things you do in your career. You know, I'll give the listeners, like, a little secret. We used to, before, like, all of the imaging was on x-rays, you know, it was on electronics, you'd get, like, a film, you know? And so if you did something that was, you know, jacked up or whatever, you'd be like, oh shit, like, this film can't see the light of day. Like, you go fix the mistake and take care of the patient, and then the film would need to disappear. Like, you know, they're about to tear down the old Parkland structure, and I'd hate to think of how many medical mysteries are about to get solved when they, like, dig up, you know, all these things from maladies from years past. But no, like, all kidding aside, like, a tremendous institution, and you know, a real gem here in Dallas.
They actually might find who the shooter from the grassy knoll was. When
you know, it's interesting, Joe, you talk about the movie, like, the guys. So Jim Carrico, who was the legendary chair of surgery at Parkland for a long time, who passed away my first year of residency, but I spent basically the entire month of December taking care of him as he was dying of metastatic colon cancer. But Jim's family was upset at the way he was portrayed, because he was the quintessential gentleman surgeon. Dr. Carrico was, and a real legend in our business. And he was portrayed like a bit of a womanizer in the movie, which couldn't have been farther from the truth. But, you know, it's Hollywood. They've got to make it sensational.
Yeah.
But, you know, getting a chance to train with legends from that day, like Dr. Carrico and Dr. McClellan, who, you know, were the guys who treated the president. And, you know, McClellan worked into his 90s. And even though he was not doing surgery very often, you know, you would, if you did some crazy case, like, you would call Dr. McClellan and say, hey, look, sir, like, you know, I've got this case brewing. You were the last one to do something like this. And so if you knew, like, you were in the operating room at Parkland and you saw Dr. Mack in scrubs, you're like, oh shit, something bad's happening. Like, you got to follow him and see, like, what's going on. I remember I had to, one of the plastic surgeons and I did a case called a hemicorpectomy, is a sort of last ditch effort to save someone with terrible pelvic disease. And it's what it sounds like. It's cutting a man in half. Like, you cut the man in half and the top half stays and the bottom half goes.
I saw that at a magic show one time.
Yeah. It's just like, I mean, I wish it was that
Copperfield.
simple. Like, it takes, you know, a lot of time and planning, whatever.
Well, it's not real when they do it in the magic
Yeah,
show.
no, they come back together.
Yeah.
They come back together.
Every time.
Every time. But I did one, and I called Dr. Mack, and I was like, hey, can you swing over here? And, you know, here he comes, like this sort of deified figure coming down the hallway, like 90-something years old, changing into scrubs to come look. And I was like, oh, shit, I don't ever want to do that again.
Just doves flying behind him,
yeah,
the whole
like,
thing.
Yeah, the whole nine. But,
the slow-mo walk.
Getting a chance to see legends of Parkland like that in action really helps shape the way that I think I am today. So,
well, I would imagine there's probably a lot of young surgeons that feel the same about you.
Well, I don't know.
You
They
know?
probably, you know, call me some kind of name behind that, but I'd like to think that, like, in my time there, you know, I help some guys get better at this and learn how to do it the right way. So,
what is the highest role that you reached over there at Parkland?
I was the chief of trauma there for almost a decade, and ran the privilege of my surgical career to run the program there, which is made up of nothing but people who want to do the right thing for other human beings and this community. And so to lead that team for that long was fantastic. And look, I hope, it's had, like I said, it's had its issues, and the relationship between Parkland and the medical school is always a little strained after, its inception. Two organizations that are dependent upon each other for success. I hope they can find their way back to that symbiotic relationship, and and it can maintain being that no kidding beacon on the hill that everybody in this town needs.
So there's several different kinds of doctors, right? I mean, you can specialize in a number of things.
Yeah.
Why surgery?
Yeah, it wasn't surgery specifically for me, but trauma surgery, which did it for me. And again, like, I'm about to say something that's probably going to offend any ER doctors that listen to this, including my boys that I work in this, tactical medicine unit with. But, I had a pretty robust experience before I went to medical school. And when I was sitting in the ER on my rotation as a fourth-year med student, I wanted to be taking care of people who were like at the end of their rope and had real problems and fix them. And, somebody would get shot in the belly or the chest, and the trauma surgeon would come down and like tell the ER doctor, "Hey man, thanks, got it. We'll take it from here." And I was like, "Oh, that's weird. Like, you're good at the first 5 minutes of every problem, but then, some specialist comes down and takes over for you and gets the person back on their feet. And then, some dude comes into the ER with a heart attack, and the cardiologist comes down and is like, "Hey, man, thanks a lot. Like, I'll take it from here." And I was like, "Well, God damn it. Like, that's, this might not be all it's cracked up to be." And so for me, the idea of having a skill set that very few people have, and the ability to apply it under really adverse conditions when people are just, in the, worst days of their life, and get them back to their families was something I couldn't pass up. And that's where I ended up.
So that sounds really intimidating. Like, I want to be the guy who walks in and tells another doctor, "Hey, it's my turn."
Right? Nah, and it's not intimidating, but the thing about a big place, big hospital where you get the chance to specialize is, people are good at different things. And I always make fun of Jeff, very good natured, but I'm like, "Hey bro, like, I'm going to take care of all the bleeding and, injuries and guts. And if anybody has the sniffles, like, I'm going to, if you wouldn't mind, like, that's what
Sniffles,
if you wouldn't mind, that's what you're good at." And of course that I always get a certain finger shot back in my face when we have this conversation, but all kidding aside, like, you just do the things you're good at, and, emergency physicians are amazing at the first, few minutes of every problem, and think about how broad that is and what they have to know to do that. But, they'd be utterly lost if they had to open someone's abdomen and rearrange a couple of things and get some things back in working order. And that's okay. Like, just a different training. So that's how I ended up here, and came here to learn to be a surgeon and learn to be a trauma surgeon. And that's what I did.
And you kept going through door after door after door.
Yeah, man.
Clearly.
And so this the whole reason we're sitting here, in the middle of my training, I was going to do like a sabbatical of sorts, which is very common for surgeons going into academic careers, where you do like a research or some sort of experience. And I was going to revitalize the way surgeons do pre-hospital care. And so, like, and the other fellow during my 2 years, this was his project, and he couldn't, he had issues at home and couldn't really be available the way, you need to be available to do this. And so they said, "Hey, will you go meet with the SWAT team commander and see what it is exactly that they want?" And I went and had lunch with Bobby Owens, and, the rest is history. And I oftentimes, even to this day, like when something crazy happens in my career, you know, I'll send a picture to Bobby and I'll say, "Hey, you made this monster, motherfucker. Like you gotta own it now." So
get into that more about the whole thing about starting with SWAT and Lieutenant Owens and how did that whole thing come? Like, explain how the whole thing even started.
Man, so you know, Bobby and I go to lunch and he lays out sort of what he was interested in terms of having, you know, a resource, a doctor, a medical capability for the SWAT team. And you got to understand, this was 2004. You know, now it's commonplace in the United States. Like, it was unheard of.
So nobody else was?
No, I mean, certainly there were a few dudes that had done this in small communities. And in fact, the guy who was, you know, sort of, seen as the nation's expert in 2004, we went, you know, once this got up and running, like I had them send me to like a tactical medicine class at the time. And I think we'd been on the team for like a year at this point before we went for like some formal outside training. And you know, like, as you know, the SWAT team here is pretty busy. Like, we're doing something almost every day. And so we talked to the guy like, "Hey, how many call outs did you run, you know, last week?" And he was like, "Last week." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, he's like, "Well, I think in the last like 5 years, I've been on like 7 call-outs." And I'm like, "Man, I was on 7 like in the 7 operations in the 4 days before I packed to come on this trip. Like, just different." But so the way it started is, look, I had lunch with Bobby, and then we sort of laid it out. And he said, "Look, why don't you come to training?" And I went to training a few times, and then he's like, "We're going to give you a pager," which I always laugh about.
Badass.
Like, gangster.
Yeah,
sure.
Player. You know, you got to have.
Is there a chain on it?
Every gangster's got to have a pager, because that's how we used to get called out. And then look, like, one thing led to another, and I remember, you know, I was like fat, like 290 something pounds. You know, I'd been a surgical resident for 3 years at the time, and wasn't really like, you don't have a lot of time to pay attention to your like fitness and nutrition, and I was a mess. And I remember like Bobby walking me in front of detail at Central, you know, in the SWAT detail room. And, you know, now guys who I, you know, consider to be dear friends and brothers, but like you've got.
Who are some of them?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I've got like the old school SWAT. You know, I had, you know, certainly Kelvin Johnigan, who became my, you know, one of my closest friends in town, and like a true brother and family member to me, and a number, you know, Tom Seibel and those guys. But like, you know, there were also guys who obviously were brothers and teammates, like, you know, Steve Claggett and Robert Cockrell, and real legends of the Dallas SWAT
Those
unit.
dudes were so big back then. I don't know if it's just nostalgia or the fact that I was young, but they seemed like they were all 10 feet tall and just
100%. And like,
dudes.
look, I mean, some of those guys are now 10 feet wide, well as we all are, like, are old. But like,
happens.
yeah, shit, it's no big deal. But I mean, literally, those dudes were like, you could not, like, they had an aura around them.
for sure.
Unbelievable. And I remember, like, Bobby takes me up on the stage, you know, in the detail room. It's like, "This is our new doctor," and you can see like these guys looking.
Pour
at
some
this
sugar on me,
fat
starts
bastard.
just playing
Yeah,
randomly.
exactly. Like, I'm like, "Bobby, you don't know that my theme music comes on," but I go up there and I remember Steve Claggett looking at me, and I could tell something fucked up was about to come out of his mouth, you know.
Yeah.
And he says,
He's good at that.
"Yeah, I mean, of course." And he says,
a
"Look,
gift.
like, what on earth makes you think that you're qualified to do this?" And I didn't have a really good answer, but the only thing I could do to sort of lower the tension in the room was look around and be like, "Well, I don't know, but I don't really see too many other, you know, mofos up here signing up for this. I'm the only one, so I think by default I'm qualified." Everybody laughed. The ice was broken, and here we are 20-something years later, or, you know, almost 20 years later. And so, you know, it's interesting because it started with that, and it built and built and built and built. And then, you know, it's not the way you start a program for a big municipal law enforcement agency, because even, you know, here we are almost 20 years later, and, we still deal with the way it started and the fact that like there wasn't really an agreement or paperwork at the time. And so like I remember Tom got the quartermaster to issue Jeff and I badges that said SWAT medical. This was before we were the police. Because, we were like coming through scenes and needed to be able to get in and stuff like that. And my first badge had the badge number M001 on it. And so after one of the times where like some horrific shit happened and I had to go to court, some lady from county court called me and said, "Is your badge number M001? And I was like, "I think so, And she said, "Well, that shows to be a dead city marshal. So that can't be right." So I went to Tom and I was like, "Hey, bro, how'd you do this?" And, it was a classic Tom Seibel production. Like he had just done it.
Just
like,
got it done.
Yeah, just got it done.
Don't ask any more questions.
And listen, like I have in the ensuing like time, I'm proud to say like I'm Seibel trained at that. Like I've just gotten some things done, but sometimes when you go back to find the paperwork behind it, it didn't exactly match. So
it's gonna be like that film at the Parkland when they tear that down.
Yeah, no, as you would find it, like holy shit, this is how they.
There's
did
no
that.
paperwork records for Seibel's productions.
But
for sure.
like we started this and we did this, and essentially it was never approved at higher than the SWAT lieutenant level, and when the Oak Park Circle shooting happened and all those guys got shot at the same time, the post-incident press conference, Chief Kunkel, who, man, I'll tell you, like, what a great human being, and I owe him a lot for letting me do this and supporting it. But, he had never heard of this program, and at the post-incident press conference at the hospital, they were like, "Chief," they were like, "We heard the new SWAT team's doctors were on the scene, like, and took care of these guys. Like, great job. Who are they? When did this program start? Like, how,
Cue the Def Leppard."
And he was like, and you could tell, like, you go back and look, he was like, "Thanks a lot. I'll get back to you guys."
We'll circle back
and,
to that.
yeah, let me come back to that. And that was the first afternoon, now of many times I've been summoned to the 6th floor. Like, who the fuck are you and where have you come from? And, Bobby and I had to go answer some tough questions together. But, he obviously turned out to be, I think.
Well, that flawlessly leads to my next question here. Did you ever run into any interference, like any issues with getting this thing going? Was anybody trying to ever stop it more than Claggett just scaring the crap out of you in front of all the other giants?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the years there have been folks who have been incredibly supportive, and there have also been people who just didn't get it. And there were a number of times where I've gone home and been like, "God damn, what else do I have to do?" And in fact, a former administrative lieutenant in this unit, who will go nameless,
call him Voldemort.
Yeah, he'll
should
go
not be
nameless.
named,
One time said to me, "I'm not really sure why we even have doctors on this team because, we don't need you guys." And treated us as such and made some things difficult on us, in terms of vehicles and equipment and things like that. And then, like I look around now and here, I would not wish this on anyone I care about or even don't care about. Like, I look at the number of guys who are still here and hanging out with their families because we were able to do something for them in a time of great crisis, and I think like it's also solidified my sort of belief never to be slowed down by small thinkers. And you got a lot of people out, not necessarily here in the police department, but like in the world, who want to play small ball and be jealous or not support something that needs to be supported simply because they can. And like I've long since like run those folks over. And I said to this individual Voldemort, who go nameless, I said, "Look, man, like I'm still going to be here when you're gone, because I'm going to deliver a value added product to this organization, and I'm going to make it the program that everybody else wants. And he was like, oh, bullshit, whatever. And that guy's like, doesn't work here anymore. So I guess the proof's in the pudding, sir.
Yeah. Well, he asked, why do we even need you guys? Look around, the lives saved, fucker. I mean, really, and that stuff. One thing that gets me, I hate the old, this is the way we've always done it mentality.
Oh, listen.
That kills progress.
You can ask my guys about that.
I hate it.
Flip tables apparently. Well,
I mean, that's fact. But that's actually fact. But I think, to me, like, this is a really incredible niche, and the reason I'm in my current, real job, for lack of a better word, is that, like, the ability to mix and to work at that nexus of great medicine, law enforcement, public health, national security, like, that's where I sit every day right now. And so, like, I mean, there are things that have gone on in this community quietly, like the Dallas Police Hemorrhage Control Program. When I came here, we didn't have anything like that. And now every one of our officers carries a tourniquet and combat gauze, and they have saved the lives of literally hundreds of people in this city. Not to mention a few of our own, but like those sorts of things, are an offshoot of integrating, my guys into the department and the program. And look, like, we've set the standard, for this before there even was one. So, I'm proud of that, and that Voldemort can look. I hope he's listening.
Yeah, you should be proud of that, because, like you said, that tourniquet program. I mean, hell, there was lives saved last week with tourniquets from officers, first responders in the field.
Literally every week, Joe, we get notified that, like, we've had another tourniquet deployment, which is, both great and, like, man, we need to probably do something about that in this town.
Might be a gun violence issue.
Yeah, it might be. But I'm incredibly proud of the way that this department has, embraced me and us, and honestly, like, am thankful. Look, like, I'm old, like, I've been doing this a long time now. Like, being on callback every day for almost 18 years is a challenge, and is exhausting on people who, I work with, people who I love, my children, and like, it's I only do it still because of you guys, because the guys who I, consider family, and know that, like, this place has given me incredible opportunities, and I'm not done giving back yet.
So,
go ahead.
Do you ever think that you are done? Has it ever come across your mind, like, why am I still doing this? Have you ever faltered in your willingness to just do this?
It's interesting. After July 7th, and I'm incredibly proud of not only my SWAT teammates for the way we responded that night, but, there were two of my docs responded that night as well to other parts of the incident. And afterwards, we used to wear these patches that say SWAT medic on them, and then the decision was made to have everybody in the same team patch. Like, we're all going to wear the SWAT patch, one SWAT unit, one SWAT team. Like, we're doing it. So very recently, like, some guys went to one of my younger dudes and were like, why are you wearing that patch? You haven't earned the right to wear that. And I was like, God damn. Like,
no, it's serious business, man.
Man, I'm like, look, like, these guys give of themselves for essentially no compensation and come out here every time with you, whether it's training or operations. Like, I mean, what are we doing? Like, let's focus on like things that matter. And the patch is, I think, I'm pretty comfortable that I've earned the right to wear it after 18 years of doing this, and in countless, situations where I've shown that I will perform under the same pressure that those guys will. And so it's things like that. Like, but I've never once said, nah, I'm done. Like, I'm going to turn all my shit in. Like, I just can't. And honestly, like, probably to the detriment of relationships and jobs and family, and you know how it is. I mean, you've been there, bro. And
I tell everybody, you can either be good in SWAT or you can be a good father, but I had a really hard time doing both.
Yeah,
and
man.
I felt like I really kind of, I wouldn't say I was great at it, but I feel like I pooped on my family quite a bit for it, and I regret the way I handled that aspect of it, but not the fact that I did it.
You don't have a choice. Like when you're doing this the right way, you don't have a choice but to have your family pay the price with you. And it's even more complicated in my opinion. I'm so glad we're refocusing on officer wellness and the toll that this takes. But like, look, I have seen and been a part of some pretty intense things as a part of the police department, and now in my quote unquote real job at DHS, like I've had the same. And like you come home and you're not yourself for a minute, and it's your kids that pay the price, the ultimate price, and your spouse, loved one, whatever, like people in your life, and so like a challenge, and so look, like never have I once thought about throwing in the towel, but there are days where you're like, God damn, like this is enough is enough.
Yeah, especially when you got the Voldemorts of the world that just they don't get it, and they want to crap on the achievements and the lives saved. That infuriates me. I just can't.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, again, like I said, Joe, like don't play small, you know. And this is, I look like I'm sure we're going to talk about Carlton.
Yep.
In a little bit. It's hard for me to see him in a wheelchair still. Here it is, all these years later. Like, God damn, if I'd done a few things differently, like the outcome would have been different, But it always is a stark reminder. Like, he wouldn't even be in that wheelchair if we hadn't been there. And I always, every time I get down about whatever, which happens, I always think like, hey man, like don't forget why you're here. Like never ever ever forget the why behind what you do, and if I can be in a place to send one of you guys home to your family instead of somewhere else, I'm gonna do it every time.
You mentioned Lieutenant Marshall. Let's talk about the Hollywood Avenue incident.
Yeah,
walk us through.
Yep. Yeah, your partner in crime, Dr. Metzger, his earlier episode, he spoke on it from his perspective.
Yeah,
I want to get your perspective on that whole incident.
In the beginning of this, and that was certainly in the relative beginning, we did a lot of this stuff together. And then we both got busier, and we both got, more responsibility at work and jobs, and we don't get to run a lot of ops together anymore. But it's funny because every time I talk to him, it's like, and that's almost every day still, it's like, God damn, I miss you, bro. I don't see you enough, And so that day, big federal warrant, which, obviously we've wised up now, but we always didn't have the best of luck doing shit early in the morning. And we've gotten smarter. But, go out to the location. Briefing was uneventful. And when Carlton got shot, Jeff and I were both about, I'd say 15 feet away, kind of behind this big tree in the front yard on Hollywood Avenue, and had kind of moved from the front of the APC to behind the tree, better cover and vantage point. And when Carlton went down and we heard officer down calls and calls for a medic, first of all, like really important, the reason we're integrated into the team is because we didn't wait for anybody to, bring him to us. Like we started moving in that direction. But like, I never heard a gunshot. And I think many people I don't know what Jeff said. I haven't listened to his episode, but I think many people out there didn't realize Carlton had been shot through the window. And so we met the guys who were dragging him away from the window at the other window. And, now, like looking back on it, I wish we would have, it would have been a much sexier story tactically to drag him another 10 feet behind the APC and had all the cover in the world. But instead we had some bushes and a bunch of dudes with rifles. And he was on his back and his eyes were open. And he looked like he tried, and I still couldn't tell what happened. Like he had a little bit of blood in the corner of his mouth. I couldn't tell if he'd been hit in the face with a tool or what. There was a lot of things going on. And behind me, you could hear like the mayhem that was going on at the structure. And it was, we were right there. And so, he looked like he tried to take a breath and looked like, when I say this, a huge rush of blood. Like, remember, I'm a surgeon, fellas. Like, my huge rush of blood and your huge rush of blood are probably different amounts.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, like something has a fucking hole in it that's not supposed to. And I pulled his collar protector down and you could see a big wound in his neck. And it became very clear that he wasn't able to maintain his own airway. And we weren't long on options out there. And so had to very quickly do some surgery to open his windpipe and put a breathing tube in an area that had just had a gunshot wound. And so, it's wild because I've been a part of several police shootings. I've never been in one myself, but I always hear about people describing, sort of that cone of concentration that comes and you lose your ability to process what's around you. And I, remember being solely focused on his neck and airway to get that airway. And once we got it, which was pretty quick, we put an IV into Carlton, got him some pain medicine, even though he was unconscious. And we were literally sitting there on the ground waiting for an ambulance to come give us, pick us up and take us to the trauma center. And, you're like, holy shit, did that just happen? And the whole thing was essentially reflexive. Like, he falls. We know how to respond because of the great training we've had with this unit and this department. He gets taken care of. And before, the ambulance is even probably out the door of the fire station, like, he's got an airway reestablished. He's alive. He's got a pulse, and we got the bleeding stopped. And we're soon to be on the way to the hospital. So, and, I remember looking across at Jeff and being like, what? Holy shit. Like, did we just do that?
On the side of a house.
Oh, yeah. In the bushes, Yeah. And I subsequently found out, like, the way you perform a cricothyroidotomy, like the procedure to put an airway.
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Yeah. For all the listeners, for all the doctor listeners out there.
Of research.
Yes, you should.
Yeah.
The way you do it is, you can't usually see very well. It's usually done by feel, in my opinion. And so, the 4 or 5 operators with weapon-mounted lights behind us, like pointing lights at, the neck, but also the back of my head. Like, I was like, man, I trust you dudes, but hey, we're good.
Yeah,
like, you guys can, put those weapons.
6 a.m. I can see.
Yeah, we're good. Like, but yeah, I mean, and then, the aftermath of that, and we took Carlton to one of the other trauma centers because we were close. In the aftermath of watching his care and then having him transferred over to rehab at Zale, all of the community support that came in to help him in his recovery. And then, of course, like watching his house get rebuilt, one of the emotional. Did Jeff talk about crying in his episode?
He did not.
So the extreme home makeover thing comes around for Carlton, and I was really grateful to play a role in that, one of the most emotional weeks of my career. And when we, like, if you don't cry during that, like, you're heartless. So, but every time, you'd tear up at the thing, like, the cameras would come flying in your face.
Of course.
So I told the producers, I'm like, look, like, you sons of bitches show me crying, like, we're going to fight.
I'm tough.
I'm tough. Like, I'm the stoic, tough one. Jeff, I guess, didn't issue any such threats or edicts. So during the show, every time they needed, like, an emotional tear, they cut to Jeff crying. So, like, people all over America, after the morning after that show aired, I had like 50 people asking me to help raise their kids all over the United States, messages and all that. And they were like, and tell your boy to toughen up. Like,
Which, if anybody knows Jeff, he is the least emotional person you'll ever come
100%,
across.
like, and the best dude in the world,
Yeah.
like a great partner and friend. And I'm, I couldn't literally. I say this to him, routinely now. Like, I couldn't have done this without him. We feel that way about each other. But I also tell him, like, man, they took the hearts out of the. He came. I started in 04. He came in 05. I'm like, man, they took the hearts out after the 05 models. Like, they just
we
don't
all
make
say
them
that you
like
couldn't
they
have done
used
it without him too.
Well, I know. I'm aware.
Well, his episode, we're recording here today, right? And all the listeners hear me say I have several on the shelf, right? Even Chief Kowalski with Bob Owens co-hosting sitting there.
Oh, wow.
And I know you'll be interested in that one. But Dr. Metzger's is actually releasing today.
Oh, good.
It's done. Kennedy got it done, and hell, I forgot how it sounds because it's been so long since we've recorded it. But the feeling's very mutual between.
Oh, listen,
between
man,
y'all two.
I would do, and I will say this: I would do anything for him today, tomorrow, whatever. He is truly, we are very different people, but the perfect yin and yang, in my opinion,
Yep.
to get this done in a way to build a program that's going to have a meaningful impact on this place forever.
And it has. You just described an impact that was meaningful, and we're going to get into some more. But I do want to ask you, when you're on this team, you're part of a team and you're part of a family, and you have very close friends, right? When you're working in a hospital in the ER, most of the people you work on are complete strangers. You don't have an emotional connection. You don't have a friendship connection, right? Or a family feel to the people that you work on. You go in and do your business, and you save their life, or you do all you can do, and that's some of the people you never see again. Mm-hmm. Whenever you have a teammate or a brother or sister or a family member go down right in front of you, how does that, you're highly trained, you're cool under pressure, but how does the human side, how do you stop that from overwhelming you so it affects your job?
Yeah. Look, like, I pride myself on caring for every person that I'm privileged to be responsible for, in any setting, to care for them like they are my brother, sister, family member, teammate. Like, that is the standard that I ascribe to and try to strive for everybody. And I tell, my trainees, the residents that I work with, or the new guys on the team, like, look, I don't really care what you fuck up. Like, number one, I can probably fix it. But number two, like, I don't care what you fuck up. Like, if you do it because you're trying to take care of another human being, and this happens, somebody gets their feelings hurt over the way a resident spoke to them. Like, I did that a few times as a resident, as you can imagine. No. Yeah, I might have had that conversation with my boss a couple of times. But, like, it's all about the why. Right? Like, and if you're doing it to be an asshole, like, inexcusable. But if you're doing it because you believe in your heart of hearts you're doing the right thing, you're taking care of somebody, like, I can work with that. Same thing to answer the question you asked. Like, you focus on the task at hand. And I think there's probably, I've had been blessed in this job to train with some pretty incredible dudes who've done pretty incredible things for this nation. The old adage that you eat the apple one bite at a time, like, you eat the elephant one bite at a time is really true. Like, you got to boil things down into a manageable task. And that's the way you take care of folks, even when there's an emotional connection. And look, like, I'm thrilled to have been in the right place at the right time to care for some people who I love like family. And there's no question that the aftermath of that psychologically is harder. But the actual act of taking care of them, you're so in the moment that you don't think about, like, who it is, what the implications are, what's going to happen afterwards. And so I think that's how you do it. But the aftermath of it, I mean, I often say like at some point, like I think all this shit's going to catch up to all of us, you know, one day. I mean, hell, Ken, you and I have talked about this a lot. Like, it's not normal to see the things that we see. And I think in the law enforcement wellness movement right now, which is nothing but good for all of us. Like, first of all, to sit there and see people who are tough and stoic say, look, it's okay to not be okay from this. And the second thing is to say, man, like, goddamn, like, take care of yourselves, because at some point, like, you got to pay the piper for all of the things that you've seen. For sure. And how you do that, I hope, is a way that is healthy and helps you move forward. Not everybody does.
Dr. T, I always reference her great quote, as she said that the law enforcement profession is like a bad human experiment. You set an individual down for 2 to 3 decades and you show them horrible image after horrible image, bad experience after bad experience, and then you expect them to be normal out in the wild. And it's not. It's just not feasible. It's
not. And you know, we look like, I don't know that we've done that great a job of preparing the next generation for what this job is truly like. And I think we're gonna end up, you know, having some issues with that down the road. But I think as we move into sort of the next 20-year phase of this, like, we really have a lot of work to do to mitigate the impact of this job on people. And look, like, I tell everybody that doesn't really understand what we do, like, this is not like an easy thing to do. Like, and there are the truths of the way this has to be done, in my opinion, are sometimes ugly, and they don't look good on camera or video, or, you know, anytime one grown ass man has to exert his will on another, like, for whatever reason, even no matter how righteous and appropriate it is, like, it never really looks good. And so, you know, you see that over and over and over again. It can be hard.
The world is ugly, right? And especially in the first responder world, it's ugly. Hell, whenever you receive a patient, whether you're in the ER or you're on the side of a house, there is something traumatic. There's something violent, whether it's a car crash, there's something violent and traumatic that brought that person to your arms.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would go with the world is ugly, Joe, because I think, like, my perspective on it is that, look, like, if you get to me alive, you got like a 90-something% chance to go back out of wherever we are alive. You can't save everybody. Right. I'm damn sure try. But I think, like, when you look at it that way, you know, the world's actually pretty incredible. Like, here I am, just like some kid from DC, like, Redskin fan in enemy territory, that gets to come down here and you know, do this awesome job with fantastic people. And, you know, the world's pretty cool that you get the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time and to have it continue. So, yeah, I don't know. But I get it. Like, the shit we see is not normal, and it's not normal over an accumulation of time.
No, it's cumulative, and it stacks on, and you never know what could break somebody.
100%.
Right?
Speaking of a not normal,
yeah,
you got Jeremy Borchard.
Yeah.
I mean, you were pretty involved in his care at the hospital,
yeah,
right?
I was.
And, I mean, just to watch that guy's recovery and the way he still attacks life today is, I mean, unusual for sure.
Hey, listen, I mean, not only unusual, but, like, if I could bottle that, like that, you know, people have written best-selling books on grit, resilience, like leadership, leading from the front, like all these bullshit books that are out there that, like, you know, from people who have done things. But if I could bottle whatever is inside that dude and use it for, you know, other patients and other people, I mean, an unbelievable tale of resilience, because, you know, that wasn't his only critical incident he was involved in. Like, he had a handful of them in a row.
Yeah.
And you know, I still to this day remember what the blood trail looked like through the hotel. And, you know, his femoral artery was revascularized by, you know, a guy in town here, Joe Monet, who's preceded me as the chief of trauma in Parkland, by a couple dudes. He's old now, and I hope he hears that. But he preceded me and was my, you know, mentor and colleague and friend, and, you know, in many ways like second dad, who raised me in the medical business and you know, helped me when my own dad couldn't. And so, you know, I love Joe and his family, and we're very close to this day. But, you know, Joe saved Jeremy's leg and life that day, as we were dealing with all the shit that was going on. And then I was glad to be able to help, like, get Jeremy through those injuries and look at what he's done now in terms of leading and rearing the next generation of guys in this business. And in fact, I just saw yesterday or the day before on, I don't know if it was the Facebook or the Instagram feed or whatever, like a picture of Jeremy standing there training young SWAT operators to do this job. And I can think of no better person to do it. Like, you know, Jeremy, in my opinion, is on par with every one of the legends from this team over the years, with the, you know, Steve and Roberts and those guys. Like, every one of the legends, I think, when the, you know, sort of day of reckoning comes around in that, you know, big sort of senior SWAT competition in the sky, like, no question, Jeremy's on par with every one of those dudes.
He's definitely created a legacy for himself.
No question. No, and done it in a way that is just humble and caring, and a great dude. So yeah, no, that was, you know, look, like, again, lucky to be in the right place at the right time to exert some influence. But, you know, that was one of the times where we really watched, you know, the other parts of this program, like, come to play. And it wasn't me that dragged Jeremy away. Like, that was a patrolman and some firemen who did that, because they had been through some training that, you know, we had ultimately put on. So, you know, thank God for that. And for the fact that, you know, we gave Jeremy the chance to pay us back, quote unquote, by doing all the good he's done since.
His existence right now, from that moment on, is a miracle of how everything unfolded and how his life was saved, and how he had the true grit to recover from that.
Oh man,
you know, everything fell into place that day, and we're gonna get him on here eventually and tell that and dissect that entire. I
have to admit, like, goddamn, like, after those two things happened to him, I was like, well, I'm not going to stand next to Jeremy for a while. Like, it's just dangerous around. Yeah, it's dangerous around here. Yeah, no doubt. But yeah, like, I mean, like I said, the ultimate model of resilience and grit, in my opinion. I hope he does come tell the story, because it's a good one.
It is. When Ed Lujan got run over, and when he was you saw him.
I did.
Okay. Ed is our ATO chairman. His episode was number 1, and when I had the idea to do this podcast, I didn't really know what it was. I mean, filling it out. Anybody listens to the earlier episodes, they can understand the sound and everybody just being kind of stiff on the interviews. But Ed's story from the get-go is incredible. It's inspiring, and he talks about whenever, you know, you're at the hospital with him, and when you first saw his injuries, what did you think, and what was your initial diagnosis as far as the potential for recovery?
Yeah, look, like, you know, the first day is always a little rough.
Yeah.
And you know, I was 100% confident Ed was going to survive. But, you know, Ed's a pretty dude. Like, and I was like, man, Ed's never going to look like Ed again. Yeah. But, you know, I was, you know, obviously you're not going to say that to him, but I was like, hey, look, man, like, we're going to get you back to where you need to go. And Ed was tough, because he had bad injuries. Like, he had a lot of injuries. And, but you know, one of the things that was great, and I didn't know Ed that well. I mean, obviously we knew of each other, but we'd not worked in the same spot or known. But I told him, like, look, like, I'm going to be with you every step of the way, and I'm not going to let this go any other way than the way that I want it to. And, you know, there were a couple nights where it was a little touch and go. Like, I had to sit at the bedside and be there with the Luhans. And, you know, look, like another guy who has more than paid it back and continues to try to pay it back every day. And I'm, you know, a lot of people talk shit about Parkland and the you know, who goes there and the clientele that it serves. But I mean, look at a guy like Ed, who, you know, it represents the best of what occurs on Harry Hines, and come back to do this and continue to work.
Yeah, he's come back to lead this great organization, and I can't think of a better person and a better face of the ATO of Ed Lujan and his recovery. It's, you know, he told the story of it as his wife, you know, his face was so damaged that, like, you needed a recent picture of him to see how to put it back together, and she showed you a picture of Brad Pitt, or so you got really close. I gotta say that.
You know, Marcella was she's incredible too, in the way she supported him. But I remember having a conversation with her in the hospital, and I told her, like, look, she was obviously upset and talking about the implications, and I said, look, like, I'm gonna tell you, like I tell all my patients, like, and family members, if I panic and you see me panicking, like, you should get upset. That hasn't happened since like 1986, but I will just tell you, like, if I get to that point, like, you get worked up. Other than that, like, we're just gonna work through these problems together. And before you look back on it, you know, being injured like Ed was, or Jeremy, or whatever, you know, people think of it as a sprint, but it's really a marathon, right? And every day you get a little bit better, and before you know it, you look back at the end of the race and you're like, holy shit, look how far I've come. And that's really the metaphor to understand, because and look at Ed, like, it's done incredible.
So you talked about ice in your veins. We mentioned that earlier, right? That's what surgeons have. We talked about how you're fairly unfazed at things. And you just mentioned again, like, if I panic, there's an issue. And I remember when Darian had his issue on Bonneview. Do you remember the story here? You remember what I'm about to tell you?
Sure.
Darian was on and told it, but I want to hear your
I was for sure.
I want to hear what all he told, because there are some other pieces of that.
Yeah.
So I was running the inside of that operation, right? And when the gun went off, I look at Darian looks at me, and he just starts going down on the couch. And he, like, instantly grabs his tourniquet and starts trying to put it on himself. And I was like, man, this dude is switched on. Like, I don't even know what happened yet. He didn't know what happened yet. None of us did. But he's automatically going to a tourniquet. What seemed like about 6 hours later, you finally made it up the stairs. It was just like you kind of bebopped in. You were kind of just like, oh, look, there he is. What happened, man? You know, you're extremely calm. There's no panic. I'm over there just in a whirlwind of you need to hurry your ass up. Like, let's get this done. You're trying to figure out how you're going to get Darian's pant leg open. You're talking to him a little bit. And I'm, like, trying to hand you scissors. I'm trying to get everything done in the quickest manner possible. And you're just at your own pace. You're not phased. And at the time, I was angry. And I think I actually slapped you in your vest. And I apologize for that. I think I've apologized a few times for it. But it showed me, number one, you don't have to be in a hurry for everything. Like, calm in bad situations is better than, like, trying to get things done. So I adopted that philosophy a little bit, and I hope that from there I got a little bit better at it. But I'd known Darian as long as I've known Joe. Like, we rode together on Little T, and it's an interesting perspective where I'm at with the SWAT guys, because I'm supposed to be in charge, right? I'm the supervisor. I'm the ranking officer there. But I look up to every one of those guys. You know, 100%. It's a very weird dynamic how that works. But then you're there, and I'm trying to get you to do your job, and you obviously know how to do your job. It's not like it's new to you. But explain what you saw when you walked in and your perspective from it, because, I mean, mine was obviously red alert, everybody. Yep. You know, let's move.
Yeah, so for me, you know, obviously I heard the gunshots. It was late in the operation. It's not the normal time you hear him, and immediately went up the stairs and made entry and found him on the ground. And in fact, what I always find interesting is I remember people were still screaming, medic, doc, all that shit. And I was already kneeling on the ground, like working on Darren. I was like, would you guys shut the fuck up? Like, I'm right here. Like, Jesus, stop hollering. Like, I'm here. And I think people just were in their OODA loop and didn't see and recognize that I was already inside, already taking care of him. And they were still screaming, like, where is he? I'm like, I'm right here, dudes. And so, like, look, got a functional tourniquet on Darian's leg to make sure. And, what I remember is you're trying to bring, and listen, this is the same thing what good trauma surgeons do or SWAT operators or doctors do, is really bring calm to chaos. And I think we had sort of gotten things to once I knew he wasn't going to bleed to death, like we had gotten things to a fragile, like, position. And I was like, all right, I'm going to take a look at this. I don't know if you remember this part, but like everybody was standing around, like watching. And I was like, Darren, I got you, bro. It's going to be fine. And like I cut his pants leg open and all the dudes in there were like, oh, shit, And I was like,
it was ugly.
Y'all are some unhelpful motherfuckers. Like, you guys need to go.
And then the whisper started, you're going to be fine. It's going to be okay.
I was like, hey, bro.
The peanut gallery was
the peanut gallery was brutal. And then so, two things happened in the Darien deal. I mean, a number of things happened, but two things that I remember very clearly. First, we got him on the stretcher, got the fire department there, took him down. And on the way to the hospital, Darren was in a lot of pain. Tourniquets hurt. Obviously, his wounds were severe. So I decided that I was going to give him a little fentanyl, pain medicine to help along. And, I still was amped up and I had gloves on and all that. And so as I went to draw the fentanyl up from my kit, the bottle basically like exploded. Like I put too much air into it or something. And the fentanyl like ran all down my arms and shit. And the firemen, bless their hearts, like slammed the brakes of the ambulance on. And we're like, oh shit, we have a fentanyl spill. Like, because everybody...
It's the boogie monster.
It's the boogie monster, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and like the guy in the back, like, was going to jump out. I was like, hey, where are your paper towels, bro? And I was like wiping it off. And he's like, you're okay? Like, yeah, man, we spill this shit all the time. Like, can you keep driving, please?
Yeah,
Like, we got to
get your
get
ass
to the
to
hospital.
hospital.
There's something a little more important going on here.
I'll explain this to you later. But so that was the first thing. And the second thing, I had finally gotten his pain under control. And we got to the hospital, and I go to get out, and like, look, let's be honest. Like, I'd like to think I'm the most athletic dude on the department. Not exactly the case.
Yeah, it's Andre Taylor and then you.
Yeah, it's me. It's Andre Taylor, number 1, Kent Wolverton 2, Alex Eastman 3 in my book. Joe, we put you on the list too.
Yeah.
But no, so I go to try to execute this very athletic move to climb over him to get out of the ambulance, and my groin protector drags basically across his wound in his foot, and he's like, he screamed out. I was like, oh shit, I bet that did hurt, bro. Sorry about that.
So you teabagged his,
like, my bad. I basically like
injury.
strafed his leg on the way out of the ambulance. So I don't think he was too impressed there. But Darian's another another great like example of a guy who like worked his ass off to rehab and recover, needed a lot of surgery and a lot of work, and look where he is today, resilient.
But it started with the program, and the doctors being there on scene as opposed to him having to wait his seconds or.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd like to think that like the peanut gallery would have been able to get a tourniquet onto him and get him to the hospital and whatever. Like I'd like to think we do it more elegantly, and that's our primary mission out there. But yeah, like talking about being in the right place at the right time to save him. So,
all right, Doc, I want to stay on the topic of critical incidents. You've seen so many. We would have a 10-hour episode. We would have a part 8, Doctor Eastman, if we touched on every one of these.
Nobody wants to hear that shit. I can
No, they do. I promise you. I may actually do that shit. I may actually get in here and have a volume 1 through 10. Yeah. So, July 7th, 2016. We've had on several guests that have touched on that. Matt Baines was talking about his involvement. Everybody's got a story from that incident, whether directly involved, indirectly, or just a family member or a close friend, everybody's got a story that ripple effect from that incident touched so many, and it continues to do that. Can you talk about your role that night, how you got the call, your response, and what you saw and what you did?
Yeah, you bet, Joe. So, that was such a weird time in policing in general. It was like it's kind of the beginning of, when everybody starts to hate us, right? It was that summer where it really was hard for the first time, in my opinion, like, to be the police. Not that it's not hard previous to that, but it was really, that summer was
different.
It felt different. And so that night, I was actually up in Addison having dinner with my college roommates who had gathered, a bunch of them who were there. And actually my Tahoe was down, so I was driving a Mark Tahoe at the time, and I was on the way back. Thankfully I hadn't had anything to drink because I'd driven my city truck because I knew this thing was going on, this protest in downtown, and we had a squad working in another part of the city, but not assigned to the protest. And it was there was a lot, man. It was tense. And so I was southbound on the tollway. I had just gotten south of 635 on my way home, when this jumped off. And actually the way I heard about it first was a friend of mine from DHS, a dear friend, used to work in Highland Park, texted me and was like, WTF, are you okay? I had no idea anything was going on yet. And right after I was about to answer the text message, my phone rang and it was communications. And I get daily calls, all my guys do, from communications about injured officers and whatever else is going on. And the very first, this, I still don't know to this day who called me, but she screamed into the phone, like, multiple officers down, Market and Lamar, and slammed the phone down. And as it turned out, like, obviously bad location, bad intersection, bad information, like, all the above. But I was already heading south, so I was able to turn on all the emergency equipment and come racing into downtown. There were some odd instructions being given that night, as you remember, instructions to stage and gather up and, look, like, I'll be the first to tell you I'm not like a big fan of insubordination, except when the instructions are fucked up, and, people are shooting and killing our friends. By the way, like, that's probably like the 15th curse word I've said, and I understand that Eddie cussed twice in his episode, so I'm just trying to beat his record.
Yeah, you surpassed him.
Yeah, I think I've got Eddie there. Sorry for all the tender-eared folks that are listening. But so, look, I skidded into the intersection of, right sort of just south of Greyhound with 4 other guys, and you could hear the gun shots still going off north of us. And I was like, shit. So I went to the back of my truck, grabbed a rifle, and realized I looked like a protester. I was like in shorts and a polo shirt. So I quickly made a quick wardrobe change as we were all gathering our stuff, and up into the mess we went. And it's funny, every time we've trained in bounding each other, I've always been like, now, if I ever have to do this shit in real life, like, something's gone dreadfully wrong. And here we are bounding each other into this fight and, covering each other as we go. And look, like, the first officer I came to was behind a car on the ground. We were still a couple blocks out, and I was like, oh, shit, like, again, nobody knew what was going on. And I knelt beside him. I said, hey, man, where are you hit? Like, it just looked like he was kind of leaned up against a car. And it was a dude that was just had locked up, like, couldn't move. Like, he wasn't shot or hurt. He just was vapor locked. And, I was like, hey, just stay right here. Like, you'll be all right. Like, you're pretty far away from where all the mess is right now. And off into the fight we went. Interestingly, you remember sort of certain things, and we crossed the intersection at the community college building, and there were reports that the shooter was elevated and shooting down at people. And, you know, we end up crossing the street in a bit of a diamond kind of. And the guys were like, slow down, stay together, you know. And I remember thinking very clearly to myself, number one, like, you know, bullshit, like I'm the least athletic of all of us, like you guys can definitely keep up. And number two, like, you know, and this has only probably happened 3 or 4 times in my career where as you're doing something, you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're a doctor. Why are you in the middle of this mess, you know? And so we got across the street. They had just dragged Brent Thompson off the scene and transported him to the hospital. So we passed all that mess and got to the doors of the community college where the suspect had just shot his way into the building. And I remember one of the community college officers there, John something, I can't remember his last name, was standing there, and he was like, hey, he went up here, the cameras don't work, all this mess. And for me, like, he had some blood on his waist. And when I looked at him, he'd been shot. And he's like, come on. I'm like, no, bro, you're out. Like, you were shot in the belly. Like, you need to go chill. Go to the command post and it'll get you taken care of. But he was stable, so I didn't stop to do anything else for him. We get into the stairwell, and, you know, at this point, like, we'd run 4 blocks and no one knew. You know, it's really disorienting down there. I mean, I've heard many people describe the fog of war, and I've never been on the battlefield, but, you know, I can tell you, like, with the gunfire ricocheting off of buildings and reports of people, you know, in other locations, like, I didn't know whether we were under attack by 1 person or 20 still at this point in the night. And so we get, like, up onto the floor, get the guy pinned into that, you know, corner where he ended up, and you know, continued to manage the incident. You know, things you remember. And again, it's hard to separate out, like, what you think about, you know, if I had been 1 step faster, could I have saved one of these guys? Like, if I had been in a little bit better shape, or been, you know, and obviously, like, looking back on the incident, probably not the case, because I wouldn't have been standing there. But again, hard, like, and challenging. So anyway, so we get up there, and I was standing there waiting and kind of holding a door because we were still waiting for other folks to arrive. And at this point, like, probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes into it, it became clear, like, this was the only problem we had. There weren't others around the city. And I looked at my phone finally, and I had, you know, 30 missed phone calls, and the hospital had called, and I was like, oh shit, like, no time to deal with this right now. But the phone rang again as the negotiation was starting, and Larry was talking to the dude, and it was the CEO of Parkland, Fred Cerise, great friend, great guy. And I was like, shit, if the CEO is calling me, like, that's like my boss's boss's boss, you know, something must be going on at the hospital. I didn't even remember I was the backup surgeon on call. Like, we had other backup people, and that's who ended up coming in to help. But anyway, so when I answered the phone, I was like, hello, you know, whispering, and he's like, Alex? And I'm like, yeah, Fred, like, the dude's right here. Like, what's up? And, you know, he's like, well, call me back, man. I'm like, no, I'm good. You know, what is going on? And he asked me, you know, if we expected many more casualties, you know, tonight. And I was like, man, probably just 1, like, but we'll let you know. And you know, after that, in the aftermath of this, my partner who was on call was furious at me for a long time that I hadn't answered his phone call, but I'd answered Fred's. And it just was a simple matter of, like, I was in the middle of this mess the first few times the phone rang, and, you know, you sort of had, your aperture had opened back up, and you're able to see the rest of the big picture when Fred called. So, you know, obviously the way that went down, you know, I remember we weren't using our radios for a number of reasons, and they came to me and said, hey, have you heard the plan? And I was like, well, I've heard rumblings, but, like, they're like, nah, like, we're going to, you know, end it the way that it ended. Can you go back and look at the device and see what you think? Not exactly like in the standard training for a traumatologist to like assess the lethality of a IED that we're building for the first time, unproven, untrained. And I said to Jude Braun at the time, I'm like, hey, look, man, like we need to put some frag in this, because if we're really gonna, you want to some frag to go through the brainstem of this guy and end this instantly. And he was like, well, Jude, well, brother, like, I don't know, like, you might be on the other side of the wall, and we're not sure how to I'm like, whoa, might be on the other side of the wall. What are you talking about, dude? Like, and I didn't think twice about it, and we, got the design of the device, like, put together. So then fast forward here, we're getting ready to do this thing, and they're like, okay, everybody back out, like, back off your perimeter position, like, get a little farther away. And they were like, you stay. And I was like about to throw the deuce at this whole operation and back up a good bit. And they were like, oh no, Alex, like you stay right here in case something bad happens. And you're like, I remember sitting there thinking like, something bad happened. Like something bad by definition is about to happen. Like we're about to make something bad happen. And so all of a sudden I turned around and one of the fire marshals was still up there. And I was like, what is this guy still doing here? But it was too late to get him like out of there. And I was like, hey man, like watch that door. If anybody comes through, like, watch our backs or whatever. So the whole thing goes down. And again, you asked when I remember, the device goes, and there was like a couple gunshots at the afterwards that, and that is probably the first time, not the first time. That was like one of the clear times I was like, okay, now I'm scared. Like we have the fucking Terminator in the back of this thing. Like he just got blown up and he's still busting caps. Like that at that point, I was like, oh man, like guess
it's never going to end.
Guess it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's never going to end. And then, we go up to him and I, the guys like hook a rope to him and roll. The first time we see him, he's sort of bent over at the waist, watch him for a little bit from afar. And I'm like, I think he's dead. Like, don't see him breathe. And it's funny, you talk about Jeremy Borchert, like Jeremy's trying desperately to cover me as I'm looking through like a stud gap, and he keeps bumping me. Like he wants the view, I want the view, he wants the view, I want the view. And I love these dudes for always watching out for me and protecting me like, a teammate and family member. But Jeremy and I was like, hey man, can you give me a minute? And he's like, well, what if he sits up and tries to shoot you? I'm like, well, like not really what I want to do, but like, I'll take care of it. Like, I promise you, like I'll shoot him, like, don't worry. And we laughed about that afterwards. And, once he was pronounced dead, we bounced. And got out. And then, not to make light of an otherwise like pretty awful night for the city and the department, but they treated all of us like suspects as we previously did. I hope this is better, but we're all gathered around and like the, SIU guys show up and there's like 7 blocks of crime scene with hundreds of spent casings in the street. Like, they're all sort of scratching their heads like, holy shit, what do we do? So we're all in custody basically while this happens. And the guys are like, it was Pup and Wante were like, hey man, we have a bone to pick with you. And I was like, tonight of all nights? Like, fuck did I do wrong tonight? And they were like, well, here's the thing, bro. 15 years we've been doing this together. We've never seen you finish first on any run ever in the history of this team. But all of a sudden, like, the dude's shooting at us and you're fast as can be. So I was like, well, guys, like, come on, man.
It's in you.
So, yeah, it's in there somewhere, hidden.
You can't hide an athlete.
Can't. But I mean, like, what a crazy deal. And the aftermath of that was incredible. And really has helped shaped much, not shape, because I felt strongly about this before, but helped really guide my what I would consider to be like my guiding principles of officer wellness. We all did so well, I think, because we were together as a unit, every day after that, something crazy was happening because they thought it was, there were all these copycat threats and all that. But it allowed us to be together and to keep your peer group together to help support each other through it. And we weren't perfect. I mean, there were guys who bore the scars of that night that survived, And I mean, I think Matt's one of them. But a lot of people who were involved in that were never the same. And I don't think any of us will be. It's one of those incidents where, it's kind of a thankfully, knock on wood, I hope, once in a career deal.
So you're pretty self-aware. How do you think it affected you?
Oh, listen, I mean, I was a mess for a couple weeks after that. And I look back on the way that I felt, and it's almost like you're not yourself, right? Like, the very next day was my my son's birthday party. Excuse me. And I had to leave, he had family in town and all that.
Sounds like an easy transition.
Yeah, and you're like, and I had to leave in the middle because that's when they thought somebody was attacking the parking garage that day. Like, I didn't have the heart to tell them that, like, nobody wants to attack the headquarters parking garage. Like, just not that.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah, we've done it. Like, that's so last year. But you're not yourself. And it took me the better part of 2 or 3 weeks to really, just get to the point where I was back to normal again. And the other part of this, I felt responsible for what had occurred at the hospital, even though I was in the field, and had to leave the scene for a minute to check my troops in the middle of the night and make sure everybody was okay. And so you sort of got both ends, because I had the incident downtown, and then I ended up timing it perfectly to be at the hospital when the ME was picking up Mike, and it was just brutal, it's just brutal. And so, like, man, I don't know how you sort of make the comeback from that, other than to focus on your peer group, focus on the support you need, talk to your loved ones and the people who you care about you. Just an absolute challenge. I'm glad I was there. Like, I'm glad I didn't let my friends go into that, and brothers, without me. But man, what a night for all of us.
When that explosion happened and you knew that it was finally over, what was that feeling like?
It's really odd. Like, here I am, like, sworn to do no harm and save lives and all of the things, the oaths that I've sworn. And I felt literally like no remorse. I was angry. I was angry that this guy made us do that to him. And I was angry at him for taking the lives of so many folks who were only there to do the right thing for this city and this community. Senseless and needless loss of life. So I remember being angry, but the degree of relief you feel is incredible. And I didn't get home until probably 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:15, and I was literally going to walk into my house, take a shower because I was, a mess, and turn around and go to the hospital and have a debriefing at 7 for my teams, my trauma teams. And I walked into the house, and I remember going into my son's room, like you're just drawn to go into my son's room and look at him, and he was in his crib, face down with his butt up in the air like a 2-year-old sleeps. So peaceful and like oblivious, thank God, of what had happened to his dad and his dad's friends and the city and all that. And that's where I cried for the first time. And I remember it plain as day. I mean, that's where, the first time I allowed, to sort of think like I could have not seen him again. And that's where I cried for the first time, and it was not the last. And I knew, that day that like we'd be talking about this for a long time, but I resolved, when I sort of did what we all do, which was like, think about myself for about 2 minutes and then got my shit together and had to go like on with the work at hand, which is not the way to do it. But, you know, I knew that like we would be dealing with the aftermath of this for a long time, and that I would try to become a voice for, you know, resilience and all the things we've talked about, and try to harness this to, and all the skill sets that I've developed to try to help people get through it. So
let's talk about those skill sets some. How do you decompress? You know, what do you do as a professional to deal with the traumas that you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, right? Like, I think there have been times in my career, and certainly after July 7th, where, you know, you've treated people differently than I would like to have, or done things that are different than I would want to do, because you're really coping with, you know, what you're dealing with. And so for me, like, you know, I try to fall back on friends, family. You know, I try to find something that you can sit outside and enjoy, whether it's working out or whatever, like something you can do to try to unwind. And, you know, I'm not the best at this for sure. You know, and I always notice when I go on vacation, it takes me like a few days. I say always go on vacation, like the one vacation I've taken in the last 4 years, you know, it takes me some time to really unwind. And it's hard. I'm not the best at it.
Doc, you said that that's still affecting all of us, and it always will. And there are people here that carry the scars from that day, and honestly, just a whole career, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got a whole career of both sides, law enforcement, and as a medical professional, that's you've risen to the highest level, you know. And can you tell the listener what you're doing now, and what your role is in the medical community, and what is next for Dr. Alex Eastman?
Ooh, I have no idea what's next. But currently, a few years ago got headhunted by the U.S. government and the Department of Homeland Security to serve as the senior medical officer for operations for DHS. So I basically get the chance to do very similar things to what I've done here in Dallas on a huge scale for DHS. It's everything from serving as the Secretary's protective medical officer all the way to running a large system of law enforcement, EMTs, and paramedics to the number of about 5,000 dudes. Well, men and women. It's not just guys. And so I get the chance to really take, you know, I don't think it's the final exam, but take all of the things that this place has given me and learned and try to apply them on a national scale. And I've been doing that since Labor Day weekend 2018. Here we are coming up on the 4th year anniversary of that. Doesn't seem like that. And I've gotten to do some pretty insane things for this nation and the people who protect it. And I'm proud to do it. I still am an active practicing surgeon that takes trauma call, and obviously still do stuff for the police department, and proud to serve in those roles. In terms of what's next, I have no idea, but I can tell you, Joe, that these doors I hope are going to keep opening, and I'm going to keep walking through them like I promised Norman I would years ago. And I'm going to try to do the best I can do, taking care of people and building those relationships for as long as I can, because I think I've got some more to give.
Well, I think you got plenty of doors you're going to kick open, as you always have. And, man, this story is incredible. You're a gem, and the city of Dallas is lucky, and this department especially is lucky to have somebody like you in our corner to make us safer. Thank you so much. Seriously.
Well, yeah, thanks for your service. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for being a part of what you do, and just continue being successful in everything you do. You know, I mean, it's been great to work with you. It's been great to get to know you personally, professionally, everything. And thank you for what you do for us.
No, folks, thanks. And to you guys, Ken and Joe, and to all the people that are listening, the support from this organization has been incredible for me, and to have been a part of it for this long, I never, ever would have thought that this is the direction my career would go. But it's truly a calling and a family, and to each of you that are out there, look out for one another, look out for the place, and let's get on with the business of making this, a better, safer place to live.
Dr. Alex Eastman, ATO listeners, thank you.